49ers instant reaction. Brock Purdy threw a perfect bomb today to the rookie Jordan Watkins, hit him in stride. We'll talk about that play and more. But first, I'd like to remind you of what C.J. West said about centers immediately after being drafted.
I'll just abuse centers, punch them in the face, be as violent as possible, just creating havoc down there in the middle.
All right, so C.J. West, the rookie, likes to abuse centers. Maybe Matt Hennessy, one of the 49ers backup centers, took exception. Today, a shoving match between C.J. and Matt Hennessy after a play. Unclear what exactly happened, but just know that C.J. West has made a splash here early in 49ers training camp. Yesterday at the first one-on-one drills, because it was the first padded practice of 49ers camp, C.J. West won all 5 of his reps. Today, he was impressive again, but the offensive line struck back. Drew Moss, who's the undrafted free agent out of Colorado State, did stonewall C.J. West on one of his pass rushes. So it's what you like to see. You like to see a competitive back and forth for the 49ers, and you also like to see maybe a little competitive edge getting the best of C.J. West and Matt Hennessy after a play. It wasn't a full-fledged fight. It was a post-play shoving match. It was quickly broken up, but 49ers camp is getting competitive. Today was the final day of a 3-day stretch, and we can take a look at some of the highlights, beginning with Brock Purdy to Christian McCaffrey. That's a good way to start practice. These are the 49ers quarterbacks working to the running backs. Patrick Taylor Jr., who, by the way, has made a couple catches at recent practices. Maybe his receiving game is improving. There's Isaac Guerendo. He started as a receiver in college, so you can see that Isaac Guerendo can be good out of the backfield for the 49ers. I think they've got high hopes as well for Corey Kiner, the undrafted rookie out of Cincinnati, who you saw haul in that pass from the 49ers quarterback room. There you see Clay Kubiak, 49ers offensive coordinator, did his first press conference of camp today, directing that QB room, still working closely with them. There is Jalen Allen, the 49ers' new edge rusher, 245 pounds. So you could see it looks a little small. I think he needs a number in the 40s or the 50s, not number 76. But that's what the new guy gets. Got some specialized coaching from the 49ers today. No Ricky Pearsall at practice today, but it was a scheduled rest today. So the freakouts about Ricky Pearsall not being with this receiver room, definitely premature. Michael Williams did miss practice today with a minor ankle issue. We can talk a little bit more about that in a second. Here are the offensive linemen. Drew Moss, 55, one of them, that did block C.J. West at practice. And now we can look at the D linemen. Kevin Givens and that's Kalia Davis. C.J. West himself in that same defensive tackle room as Kalia Davis. All right, on to what happened during the team drill portion of this practice. Very first play, Brock Purdy, George Kittle, big gain over the seam. Purdy later today, there was a play that reminded me a lot of how the one that I described yesterday worked, where he rolled out to his right, away from the pressure. Yesterday, he threw back across his body to the middle of the field. A no-no for most quarterbacks. We get it. Brock Purdy, though, is a little bit different. He's spectacular with some of these off-schedule plays. Yesterday, he threw back across the grain to Jordan Watkins. Today, he pump-faked backwards, and the whole defense kind of stopped in its tracks, and that allowed the Purdy to run to the edge and get around D. Winters. And D and Brock Purdy had a laugh after the play. He's not an easy quarterback to corral, and definitely that play, I think, and the combination of that play with the one the day before did illustrate the challenges of defending a mobile quarterback like Brock Purdy. He's really been able to expand the 49ers offense with what he's able to do with his legs. You probably want to hear about the deep pass to Jordan Watkins. That was a heave, and it came with Darrell Luter Jr. and Jason Pinnock in coverage. Watkins, remember, this is what, 4.37 speed out of Ole Miss, so he's a burner. He got behind the defense, and Purdy put that rainbow arc right where it had to be to take advantage of the win that the 49ers saw from Jordan Watkins. So Watkins has been making a lot of plays. The key for him, and for all rookies, but especially these receivers, they're going to flash a couple times, but then it's how consistently can you flash? Because stuff starts getting thrown at you. Clay Kubiak, offensive coordinator, I told you about his press conference today, he made the point that the camp is about endurance, right? All these guys have physical ability. All these guys have some sort of talent. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in an NFL building, but can you do this day in, day out as the defense adjusts, as the playbook gets bigger, as more is thrown at you, as you're tired? Today was the hottest day of practice today for the 49ers, so I think that fatigue started to set in. They're going to have that day off tomorrow. Can Jordan Watkins continue to deliver at a high level day in and day out as this practice of camp continues? And today, with that deep catch from Brock Purdy, obviously a good arrow in the right direction. A couple interceptions today. One was Purdy to Luke Gifford, and this was a typical training camp interception. Purdy was rolling to his left, nothing was there. I think in a real game, he probably just heaves that one out of bounds. Instead, he just kind of half-heartedly forced a pass into coverage, and Luke Gifford picked it off, and George Kittle turns around to the media and he said, "Don't tweet about that." It was just a funny moment. George Kittle, in year number 9, is able to bring levity to some situations. Much more emphatic interception, we'll say, came on the very last play today of practice. Mac Jones was the quarterback. Trey Avery, we had talked about all these other young 49ers corners competing for that 3rd spot. We haven't talked much about Trey yet. He's kind of been buried on the depth chart, but he picked it off and ran it all the way back, and all hell broke loose on the field. It was bedlam. The defense was really excited to finish practice on that way, because you know what? The 49ers have a day off tomorrow, so you want to end on a good note. The defense gets that taste in their mouths, and the offense, that's a very poor taste in their mouths on the Mac Jones interception to Trey Avery to finish things off. Okay, so I said no Pearsall. That was by design. 2 days on, 1 day off was the plan for Ricky Pearsall. You're building his hamstring and back up. I mean, the hamstring is healthy, but you're building the endurance so he doesn't suffer another one of those hamstring pulls. Ricky Pearsall gets 2 days off now because you stack it with tomorrow's day off. In the case of Mykel Williams, I know that he played on a high ankle sprain last season for Georgia. That obviously limited him as a player. There was some care taken for Mykel Williams' ankle over the course of OTAs. So the fact that he had to sit today, I think people are going to raise their eyebrows saying, oh, it's the ankle again. But the 49ers have classified it as minor. And until we know more, I would assume it's just a maintenance thing for Mykel Williams. Like, okay, the ankle might be bothering him a little bit. They're not going to stack him into 3 practices in a row, especially with a day off tomorrow. They can give him 2 days off in a row before he returns. Remember, Mykel looked really, really good for San Francisco at practice yesterday, the longest padded practice of the week. He destabilized Trent Williams a couple times, and I think a lot of people left very excited about the 49ers defensive line, especially the rookies coming out of that practice. Like I said, I saw some of the one-on-ones of the linemen today, including the one where Drew Moss, the undrafted free agent out of Colorado State, was able to stop CJ West, but CJ also got some of his wins. I decided to go to the other side of the field today, where I saw the 49ers tight ends and running backs working against the safeties and linebackers in one-on-one. So this was pass coverage drills. A couple things that I noticed. Braden Willis, he's very sneakily turned into a good route runner and a nimble mover, and he beat Jason Pinnock, who's really, really athletic in one-on-ones. Now keep in mind that without double coverage help, it's going to be really hard for safeties and linebackers in this day and age to keep up with tight ends and running backs, especially the running backs with how well they move. So it's more of a story when the defense wins in these one-on-ones, but still, I thought that Braden Willis generated some nice separation for the 49ers against Jason Pinnock. George Kittle, of course, he won his matchup. That one came against Richie Grant. Probably the most compelling matchup for San Francisco today was D. Winters against Christian McCaffrey. Winters and McCaffrey are both penciled in to be starters. Obviously, McCaffrey is locked in. He's going to be a Hall of Famer one day. But D. Winters has the very inside track. It's essentially locked in that he's going to be the 49ers' second linebacker behind Fred Warner. So you love to see guys of this caliber compete, especially with Winters on this seeming upswing. And he put in a very physical rep on a quick route against Christian McCaffrey and ended up ripping the ball out. He was fired up. Beating Christian at anything probably should earn you a star on the helmet. And not a Dallas Cowboys star, just like a star of recognition on the helmet. And D. Winters definitely did win that rep. And then he had another thud-up hit later in practice. He had one yesterday. I mean, he has been flying around the football. Fred Warner's talked so much about him having this big opportunity to take that next step consistently this year. And I think that D is doing it. Like, the early returns here in training camp practice are good for the 49ers. We then saw Corey Kiner beat Luke Gifford deep on one-on-ones. And we also saw Braden Willis beat Jair Brown. So a couple wins for Willis before I headed over to the defensive, offensive line one-on-ones. And I saw C.J. West back down Drew Moss, but that was after Drew Moss had stonewalled C.J. West. So fun to watch that. We also saw a nice swim move from Alfred Collins. I know a lot of people were asking about Collins yesterday because I talked so much about Michael and I talk so much about C.J. West. Well, Alfred Collins, I think that the developmental trajectory for him is going to be slightly slower because A, he wasn't at OTAs, he's coming off of his calf injury during OTAs, but B, he's just taller. I think it's going to be, his height will end up being, if the 49ers develop him correctly, if things go the way they should, his height will end up being an asset, but early on, you've got to teach him to play with the right NFL leverage. It's a little bit harder to be quick when you're taller, and I think that just some of the polish takes a little bit longer to develop for a player who's about 6'7", to leverage into an asset. Well, today, working against, I believe it was Drew Moss. Drew Moss got to work against both C.J. West and Alfred Collins. Alfred put on a really nice swim move. That one was impressive. And, it was just another addition to his arsenal. And we're going to be seeing a lot of that from C.J. West, from Michael Williams, from Alfred Collins. Guys who were, I think, better run defenders than pass rushers in college. But the 49ers see pass rushing potential, and they're going to be working with them to sprinkle in some pass rushing moves. And we definitely saw some of that in these one-on-ones. Back to team drills. We saw Mason Pline. He's now wearing the number 43, make a nice catch on a deeper out pattern today for the 49ers. I think Pline has really worked on his hands. And, with somebody like that, he was a basketball player throughout the first half of his college career. He didn't play football to the back half. So they stashed him on the practice squad last year. I think they're happy with the tight end 3 competition behind Kittle and Luke Farrell. I talk about Willis having developed into a nimble route runner for the 49ers. Look out for Mason Pline, because if you talk about meat on the bone for the tight end position, this guy probably has the most of it as far as developmental ability goes, because he started the latest in his football career, coming up as that basketball player before he switched to football at a small school in college. Another thud up today was Bryce Huff. I don't talk about him much as a run defender because he's not going to be in on many running downs, but sometimes you get caught in that situation as a defense. You've got your nickel package in and the offense runs. That happened today, and Bryce Huff thudded up Christian McCaffrey. I had to do a double take. I'm like, who is that? Was that a linebacker coming in, fitting the run? No, it was Bryce Huff, the lighter edge rusher, putting in a good hit on Christian McCaffrey. Mac Jones had a nice pass to Isaac Guerrero out of the backfield. The kicking competition resumed today, although we couldn't tell if the field goals were good or not, most of them at least, because the officials were standing there talking and they didn't signal good or no good for some of them. They signaled good on 2 of Greg Joseph's field goals. They didn't do anything. They weren't watching Jake Moody's field goals. So it could be that Moody and Joseph both went 4 for 4 again, but we were on the very side, so we didn't have the angle to see if it went inside or outside the goalposts. Maybe I'll have a better description for you of what actually happened on those kicks at a later date. Brock Purdy, nice layered throw today over coverage to Demarcus Robinson, who I think is going to be a key part of the 49ers offense this year. There was kind of a weird play where Jordan Elliott ran into Brock Purdy, but nobody got mad, so probably was incidental, but Purdy fell over. Everybody was okay. Elliott, the 49ers defensive tackle. I mentioned Luter was beat on the deep ball to Jordan Watkins, but he did have a nice pass breakup a little bit earlier on a shorter throw. That was right before Purdy threw that big heave to Watkins. Nice catch early in practice from Russell Gage in the end zone. That probably the most pumped up the offense was all day, was when Russell Gage caught a pass in the corner. We're not tallying exactly, but up until 2 days ago, he for sure had the most catches of any 49ers receiver at training camp, and this guy was no scrub before he tore his patellar tendon. Now, we'll see. He hasn't played since then. We'll see if he comes back and is able to make the 49ers roster. But he had a couple 750-plus yard seasons with the Falcons. This is a legit number 3, a veteran. And if the 49ers are looking for a higher floor in their receiver room, if none of these rookies completely sell them for playing time early in the season, well, I would say that somebody like Russell Gage has been there and done that, and he's a year further removed from the injury that's basically kept him sidelined for 2 seasons. He's playing really, really well in training camp. Finally, practice ended with that pick 6. Mac Jones, the Trey Avery, another competitive day. Here's what's going to happen. The 49ers are going to take tomorrow off. They will be back here for another 3-day stretch on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Then Sunday, we're going to interview all the assistant coaches, and then they're going to come out with the schedule for next week when the Denver Broncos come into town. There's your instant reaction. Hit that notification bell, hit that sub button. This is the deepest analysis that you're going to get, and obviously check out the San Francisco Standard. I linked it in the comments section, in the description. It's everywhere. If you want the deepest written coverage, it will benefit you. You should definitely go check it out. There is another 49ers helmet update.